The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
TV party tonight! What? TV party tonight!
Oh, we got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
Don't want to talk about anything else.
We don't want to know.
We're dedicated to our favorite shows!
Oh, my circuit!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad.
Scary dog!
Blurson at Blurnsville.
Futurama!
Hello. Good evening and welcome to TV Party Tonight. I'm your host, Alexis Hejna. Joining me, Mr. Mark Radulich. How's it going?
I'm good. I'm putting us on Instagram.
Hashtag follow. Oh God, I feel like I feel like I just chipped away at my soul just saying shit like that. Ah,
Do you feel dirty now?
I feel so dirty.
Well, that's good. I like my girls dirty. Keep going.
Oh, I know you do, honey. Yeah. We're talking Shudder influencers because we're talking about the Netflix miniseries Apple Cider Vinegar. This was produced by Seesaw Films, based off of the book The Woman Who Fooled the World by Bo Donnelly and Nick Toscano, starring Kaitlyn Dever and Alycia Debnam-Carey as wellness gurus. Specifically, Kaitlyn Dever stars as Belle Gibson, the wellness guru who told everyone, hey, you know what? I have a brain tumor and you don't need to go to the doctor. I just take all these holistic things and I'm all better. And guess what? Yeah, she didn't have no tumor.
Were you Yosemite Sam? What was that you just did?
I don't know where that came from.
I have no tumor. I cured my cancer with Jack Daniels. That's what I did.
Well, I always assumed that was how you cured your cancer.
No, I just yelled at it a lot. I said, be gone, foul dwimmerling. And it's, oh, God.
Hey, if it doesn't work on Robert, it ain't going to work on the tumor.
So I wanted to talk about this with you. Because I hate everything. Also, I don't deal in the sludge anymore, and even the sludge that I'm at least willing to give a throw in the bed, I still won't talk about because I'm done with all that now. I have to move on with my life. However, there are certain television shows that I think you and I have a common interest in, and we did yours. We did The Bondsman. And I said, okay.
Rest in peace, Bondsman. That's not getting a second season.
No. When I was looking at TV shows and movies that were coming out this year, so this was like back in January. This had a release of February, and I saw the title, and Apple Cider Vinegar. Isn't that shit people tell you to be healthy? Like, that's all I really knew about it. Like, I wonder what kind of show this is. Like, I thought it was like a documentary series or something, and I read about it. I knew nothing of Belle Gibson. I knew nothing of this controversy. I've never used the whole pantry in my life. I don't own an Apple Watch. So I
own an iPhone. I do not have an Apple Watch. And honestly, I'm kind of limited on how many apps I see people with like a million freaking apps on their phone, just scrolling through them endlessly looking. It's like, I literally only have what I need on there. I try to limit the apps.
So I didn't know anything about this at all, but the title seemed interesting enough. And when I read what it was, I was like, oh, well, not everything you and I talk about has to be about sex. It can be a true crime or murder, for that matter. It can be a true crime story, which this is, that has to do with health, and wellness, and diet, and influencing, and social media. And I thought, well, those are all things that I think you and I have at least a tangential interest in. And then so I said, let's talk about it. It's 6 episodes. It's an easy ask, and you owed me. So I threw it on the schedule, and I love this show. I was really excited to talk about it with you. I'm hoping we get into all the things I have on my mind that I want to discuss with it. But I loved it, not necessarily because it's like the most well-made show ever. I have some craft issues with it. I really hate the non-linear storytelling. Shut up, Robert. However,
No, I'm with you. I understand why they did it,
sure.
but
Well,
but yeah,
it's a very modern style thing. This is
yeah.
apparently in our current ADHD addled TikTok generation, we don't have an attention span, so they have to keep shifting times in order to keep people interested. Like, my God, The Witcher should have tried this. Just every time they change times, just put up in bright letters where we were in the timeline instead of
I actually
depending
would
on
have
people's
killed for
intelligence.
the Witch. I would have killed for the Witcher to do that. That was the reason I stopped watching. I was like, I can't take the time jumps anymore. This is getting annoying.
Yeah, I had to read the wiki to follow what was happening. Anyway, so I
Mhm.
can give you back your show. I liked what the show had to say about a certain series of subjects that are near and dear to my heart. The lead in this, who you may remember from Dope Sick, which we were supposed to review, but I got sequestered. She's quite a lovely actress. Like, the more I see her in things, the more I realize she is, because she's a small dainty thing and she takes on interesting projects and not like the big sexy IP stuff. I don't think anyone knows who the hell she is, but she is quite a stellar actress. She's very talented.
She's got a face that says, I would be perfect for teenage rom-coms, but she doesn't. She's most recently playing Abby in The Last of Us Season 2. Not going to say any spoilers, but if you played the game, you know that's a pretty pivotal role.
I don't know nothing about The Last of Us.
That's why I'm just saying. It's like I'm saying, never mind. No, I was actually impressed. She's American.
Oh, is she? I couldn't tell if she was Australian or not.
Yeah, she nails the accent. Apparently, she decided she really wanted to play this part because, what was it? Her mother was diagnosed with cancer. I forgot. I hate to say, I need to double check if her mother passed away or not. But a story like this really hit close to home for her.
Well, that's good.
Passed away from breast cancer in 2024.
I love a good passion project. So, all right, let's get into it, Alexis.
All right, so yeah, Belle Gibson. This was a woman who amassed a massive following, started a website, an app, published a book of her recipes, all while claiming that she had taken on her tumors with holistic healing, with things like the Gerson therapy. I can't remember if there was like an H sound in there, which basically involves a plant-based diet with coffee enemas. Have fun with that. We go back and forth between her and a woman named Milla Blake, who is based on the real life person Jessica Anskoff, who very similarly was a young woman who got cancer and decided that she was going to heal it through holistic means. And within 6 years of this, sadly passed away from cancer. Later admitting to her followers in one of her last posts that if she could go back in time, she would have stuck with conventional medicine.
That is the unfortunate lesson in all of this, is that, look, for every win holistic or non-traditional Eastern medicine gets, there's 100 losses. There's a reason why modern science is what it is. And don't get me wrong, I subscribe to the philosophy and belief that many share that Western medicine is about treating the illness, not curing the illness, because the money's in the chase. And as they say in pro wrestling, the money is in treating an illness, not curing it. If you cure it, you take a way of making money out of the pharmaceutical market. All of that is true, but some shit at the moment just ain't curable. And so you have to go with treatments, and you have to go with conventional treatments, or what are you supposed to do? I will not spend too long or too often going back to my own struggles with diverse B-cell lymphoma, but I will tell you that at the time that I first was diagnosed with it, I was actually told by the doctor, try to stay alive. This is 2017. Try to stay alive for the next 5 years. We've got a lot of really cool stuff coming on board that'll be available to the public. If you can just stay alive long enough, we can actually cure you of this thing for good, we think. But it's going to take about that long to get these things available to the public. And I'm like, okay, I'll try not to die.
You talk about your cancer. I am the daughter of a double cancer survivor. My father had esophageal cancer when I was only 2. I called him earlier today and I was like, look, I know obviously the internet didn't exist back then, but did anyone approach you or try to sell you on alternative therapy or holistic medicine? He said, thankfully, no, no one did, mostly because, as he said, he doesn't really hang out with people that annoyingly stupid. But he also had a very good relationship with his oncologist who warned him about the dangers of alternative therapy and holistic medicine. Said, there's a line in the series. It's like, it's like, try to stay off of Google and TikTok. To be careful when you research this kind of stuff, because you're going to find a million posts about, it's like, oh, just what's the therapy that Milla starts with? Mistletoe therapy. And I love the look on the doctor's face, like, oh dear God, this is not going to end well. They all know that she has basically just signed her own death warrant.
I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to beg you to get back on talking about the show itself. There were times where the doctors were insisting I do something, and I adamantly refused for a variety of reasons. And they said, you will be dead within 5 years if you don't do X, Y, Z. And I'm like, well, I'm not doing it because you're asking me to make a choice of whether or not I want to be stabbed or do I want to be shot, and you're going to shoot me. So I'll just take the stabbing. And they went, we think differently, but we can't stop you. And I did not, in this particular case, it was a bone marrow transplant. I'm like, I'm not doing a bone marrow transplant. I will impoverish my family if I do this. Well, welcome to medicine in the United States. And
No
like
kidding.
I said, that was one doctor. One doctor insisted I was going to die. Another doctor said, try to hang on for 5 years. Better medicine is coming. And the second guy I wanted to shoot less than the first gal. So for the people that adopt alternative medicines in almost a religious fashion, my heart goes out to them. I am sympathetic with the Millas of the world because, when you're faced with, they're going to, in the show, they talk about they're going to cut her arm off because that's the best way to get rid of the cancer. When, there's another character in this who has breast cancer, and you know how they deal with breast cancer, don't you? They cut the boobs off. There is something to be said for people just not wanting to slowly but surely have their limbs eliminated from them, like they're the Black Knight and Monty Python's The Holy Grail. And never underestimate the power of belief. If you believe that there's an alternative to having your arm, your legs, your boobs cut off, you're going to go for it, because what other choice do you have other than just, let the doctor have their way with you? And sometimes they're not right, Alexis. Sometimes they're just not right.
Exactly. So we have 4 women at the center of our story, starting with Belle Gibson. Like I said, Belle was a real woman. She still hasn't paid back a penny of the money that she was found to owe for frauding or for charity fraud.
Yeah, she earned all of this money for a variety of different charities, proceeded to give none of the charities any of the money, spent the money, was then sued and fined, and proceeded to pay back none of it. The lesson in all of this, children, is defrauding people is perfectly fine. Nobody can enforce the rules.
Apparently, her home has been seized twice to seize assets to help pay the bills, essentially.
Nice.
Yeah. And Belle is immediately... They really play this as a character you are supposed to hate. There is never a moment, I think maybe like 1 or 2 when she's with her child, but there's never a real moment where you feel sorry for Belle. She
is the poster child for, I don't want to call her a full-blown narcissist. I don't think that's fair. It is a televised character. But if that portrayal of her is in any way close to how the gal in real life behaved, she is definitely, again, I hesitate to say narcissist, A, because it's it's kind of a throwaway TikTok word now, but also because no good therapist worth their license will diagnose somebody in absentia. However, the portrayal of that character is she has definitely got some personality disordered traits. She's the fucking poster girl for a personality disorder.
Absolutely. We see her trying to get her girlfriends girlfriends, they were just co-workers, to come to her baby shower. And I love the juxtaposition that she buys all organic for herself, but when she finds out that her baby gift was bought on sale, she screws all the organic stuff and just buys generic shit to make cupcakes for her baby shower.
Right.
And she shows up she's made her own food, she's got all the drinks for the baby shower, and no one shows up.
Mhm.
And I'll admit, it's like, whether or not you hate someone, that's painful to try to
Sure.
throw a party and no one's there. And she is so upset that she walks straight into an ER and starts talking about massive migraines.
Yeah. Later on in the show, there's a bit where she's challenged on something. Her husband's on like the verge of leaving her, and because she had seen a child actually do this, she fakes a seizure.
A 40-minute seizure, and then when he says that we need to take you to the hospital, she just lies in bed with a cold compress on her head and goes, "But I'm sick." And you have a 40-minute seizure, you go to the hospital, okay?
Yeah.
You don't get to weasel out of that. Interesting also, I don't know if you noticed, they never say what her son's name is. She always calls him Bubby or
Mhm.
Baby. I found that interesting. It almost depersonalizes her attachment to her own son. We hear about how she's a great mom and she loves her child, but she never calls him by his name.
People like Belle, children are not children, they're accessories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd like to think you never locked your child in their bedroom to force them to try to get a good night's sleep.
No, I spared my child until she was too exhausted to get out of bed. And that's how you sleep train a pet toddler.
Wait, spear, like the wrestling move spear?
Yeah, like Goldberg.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
every time Lily got out of bed, I just tackled her, and to the point where she stopped getting out of bed because she's so stupid. She learned.
Parenting tips from the Radulich Broadcasting Network.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it's also interesting that so many of the shots, especially the shots on Belle, are framed center, focusing entirely on her.
Mhm.
There's very little room to the side. It is both a combination of intimacy, because it's like she wants to be in your personal space. It's a very similar send up to how people record themselves when they're, high, live streaming.
Yeah.
But it also gives you the idea that she is in your space and there's nothing you can do about it. She's just like, "Hi, I'm here." And she is always talking directly to the camera.
Well, people like Belle, they're entirely focused on their image and in attention. Everything about their life, everything is made, and this is the whole reason. You got to understand, going back to the beginning of the show, the reason why she says that she has cancer is because she's lonely. She's lonely. She's isolated. She has no friends. She's a loser. And she sees that people who have cancer get sympathy, get attention. So she fakes cancer on the internet, like a chat room or something like that, like a message board, so that she will get the kind of sympathy and attention and validation that only the internet can provide. And with the success of using cancer as a way to attract attention to herself, she builds on this sort of thing. Everything about the whole pantry, the holistic living, everything about this woman's career, profession, business, personality was, I cannot be alone with my own self. I cannot be alone with my thoughts. I must have constant attention and validation. I must be praised, and if I can't get praised, I'll take negative attention. All attention is good attention, but what you're not going to do is isolate me again. To be isolated is death, and I would rather be a lying snake oil salesman than be alone, because, again, to be alone is death. That is the motivation for this character through the entire 6 episodes, and everything that she does, including parenting, and I say that with quotes, her son, or marrying the guy. Everybody is an extension of her. Everyone's an accessory. Everybody is there to promote the image, to create the facade that she wants to promote to get the attention she's looking for.
Here's a question. Why do you think so many people, and this is, I'm sorry, I'm going to call spade a spade, especially in the younger generations, think it's more important to have followers than it is to have friends.
Oh gosh, Alexis, we don't have that kind of time. But I will give you a 50 word or less answer. A lot of it is if you don't feel like you are seen and heard and validated, and as a child, you grow up to be the kind of adult that is perpetually seeking it. And what the internet is really, really good at is it's the greatest drug ever invented. It never goes away. It is always available to you, and the barrier to entry is none. At least with actual drugs, you have to go out to the corner and get them. This, you know,
Grab your phone.
I was like, between phones and the internet, we gave everybody the greatest drug ever invented by man. I don't even think the devil predicted how good this was going to be, because it created an instant validation machine for people who have not mastered the art of socializing.
Not to mention the people who do make livings as influencers, content creators, they make it look so easy. It really does. We look at our favorite content creators. I know that we all have our favorite YouTube stars that we watch on a regular basis. Good Mythical Morning, Game Grumps, Jacksepticeye and the like, and we go or Critical Drinker, and we go and watch them, and they really make it look like what they do is a cakewalk. And so many of us think, well, they're famous and they've got 1 million followers and people think they're funny.
Let's talk about the most obvious one, probably the one of the more famous ones, the Paul brothers. You ever hear Robert talk about what the Paul brothers do in order to create their content? They film for hours. This is what they do. They film for 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 hours. Then the rest of the time that if they're not sleeping, they're editing. I was actually talking about this the other day. In order to maximize your exposure on TikTok, you have to be posting incessantly. Like every couple of hours, you have to have new content up. So people who do that, that is their job. That is their living. And you have to be in this mindset of everything is content. I mean, and I'm kind of halfway there. A lot of times I'm thinking about like, I did one earlier. I had my new thing now is I used to talk to people. I have found that to be unfulfilling. So now when I have a thought, I go, ChatGPT, I had a thought. And it goes, great. Would you like to take that thought and make it a script? I would, ChatGPT, I would. And then I shot myself reciting the script about a thought that I had. I'm always like thinking about what is content. And, I have to modulate myself, because sometimes my kids like it and sometimes they just want to be kids be allowed to live their life, and I have to respect that. So sometimes I think something is content and my kids go, no, father, please, not again, not the TikTok. There have been horror stories about parents who have abused their children for content. Yeah. I have heard a lot of horror stories about it. It's like, okay, now say something funny, or you don't get dinner. Yeah. So going back to the Paul brothers to make the point, so we can move this on. It's a full-time job to do this sort of thing, and it looks easy. Just like movies look easy.
Yeah.
You watch a movie, and like I said earlier, before we came on the air, I was telling you I watched SLC Punk because I'm reviewing it Sunday with Jesse. And, that's like Matthew Lillard for an hour and a half talking into the camera about, punk rock in Salt Lake City. You would think this was the easiest movie in the world to shoot. What you don't know about are grips and lighting, editing, the process it takes to make a movie. People think like these actors are so natural. That's line memorization. That's very little improv. On most movies, you can't improv. It fucks up the editing. So the point is, a lot of things that are made to look easy are made to look easy because the people who are doing them are at the height of professionalism. The funny thing about social media and content creation is that the very best at doing this spend hours trying to get it right. And there's stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't even know about. I mean, you can pay to have your stuff promoted. I pay $20 a week, and they pick 5 of my videos, and I do it because I don't have a lot of money to do this, but I get 2,000 views. Up to 2,000 views per video on the ones that I pay to promote. How much time and effort people are putting into that back end promotion that makes it look like, they're a pretty girl, a dead-eyed pretty girl with a pretty face, saying a dumb thing and I got 1 million views. Well, I'm a pretty girl with with a dumb thing to say and dead eyes. I can do that too. Well, did you put the work in behind the scenes that you don't know about? Probably not.
Say a handful of my favorite YouTube stars, they hire editors. They hire a whole team. It's like, okay, like the Game Grumps. I love the Game Grumps. It's not just them. They are playing video games all day, several different video games to get enough content. And then they ship that off to an editor in their studio who has to put together like 5 days worth of content out of that and edit it together to make sure that, it all sounds good.
I'll tell you where this started. It started with COVID. People were home.
Very much so.
People were home. This is what they had nothing but time to learn this. We're 5 years out of COVID, but that 3 month period to a year, depending on where you live, was just people at home trying to not be bored to tears or bored to death, as it were. And they became content creators because they had that kind of time. The difference between me and a lot of those people is I never stopped working because I've been at the jail for the last 10 years. And guess what happened with the jail during COVID? It didn't close.
Pretty much. No, I understand. I had to find new ways to do content creation for Honeysuckle Rose when I was stuck at COVID because I couldn't shoot anything at the conventions.
Right.
I've gotten so many followers just from taking pictures of cosplayers that come by my booth. The 2 most popular videos on my TikTok are a woman dressed up as Queen Amidala in the royal regal red gown from Phantom Menace, doing a full spin. And for the record, these are amazing cosplays. And someone dressed up as the spooky space kook from Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? That's the one that's like the skeleton in the giant space suit going, whoa! They had the laugh. They actually had the sound effect laugh.
So to relate this back to the show, what Belle does is these very curated, very specific, like, we talk about the embezzlement that she does. That started off with, she saw a kid that she could manipulate, this poor kid who's dying of cancer, and she's like, I'm going to do all of these great things with this kid, and I'm going to raise all this money for him, this money that he never got, and I think the kid passed away. But that is so a lot of this show. The reason why she's the villain of this show, and the reason why they made the show about her, is because it, like what we've been talking about, she dedicated herself to crafting an image. Like, I don't like the word influencer. I think it gets thrown around a little too liberally. I would say that's why I was saying content creators. Yeah. Either content creator, influencer, whatever it is. Her life was dedicated to using the internet and everyone around her to craft an image of herself to elicit sympathy, validation, and attention. And she turned that into a business. And when she had the business, she kept doing it because it worked. And the really funny thing about this show, I don't know if you're going to get to it at some point, but you have the Milla character who was a true believer. This is somebody who really had cancer, and she really believed in the alternative medicine. She believed in it like a Christian believes in Christ. And she proselytized like a Christian believes in Christ about it. She created a business. She made juices. She was trying to sell those juices. And she got eclipsed by the false prophet. She got eclipsed by Belle, who damn near put her out of business just by her sheer existence and force of will, because she was better at manipulating the internet than Milla was. And there's a lot of, it's not the saddest story in the world, but there's a lot of tragedy in apple cider vinegar.
There is, especially with Milla and her mother. So Milla does the Gerson theory, and she gets the coffee enemas, and she goes all natural, and there are days when she's just juicing and she won't actually eat. You have a scene where she's talking about Belle is a bad influence, and she says she can't keep lying, it's too dangerous. Cut to her drinking like a gallon of homemade juice.
Right.
And this is, again, Milla's based off of a real life woman who tragically died of cancer after she went for holistic methods. Milla's mother develops, I guess it's bowel cancer. And she says, well, the juicing method worked so well for our daughter, I want to try it. And this really happened with Jessica Anscoff's mother. Her mother said had I think it was breast cancer, actually, and said, you know what, it worked for our daughter, I want to try it. she did not make it, and she went very, very quickly.
The scenes between Milla and her dad, where her dad doesn't want to hate his daughter. He loves his daughter, but she won't listen to reason. And it's one thing when your child won't listen to reason and they hurt themselves, but when they won't listen to reason and they take somebody else you love down with them, advertently or inadvertently, he is so. What I like about his character is how much he is wrestling with the rage inside of him, because he is so mad at his daughter, and he is so heartbroken by the loss of his wife. And what is he supposed to do about it? Beat the shit out of her? He is so. It is one of the worst things in the world for a man to feel utterly hopeless and helpless. There's nothing you can do to change the situation. There's nothing you can do to fix it, and you can't direct your rage at the target of what's causing all of this, because it's his daughter and he loves his daughter. So he is a very tortured and conflicted character.
The scene of him yelling at the doctor when they find out that Milla's only got about 3 months left to live is so painful. And the doctor is there, and you can tell he wants to say, well, if you'd cut off your arm when I originally suggested it, you can tell he wants to, but he's maintaining his professionalism, and he's saying medicine doesn't discriminate. This is not, this is not payback for her not doing this before, but we all know he's thinking it. And it is tragic that if she had just done that, not only are chances good she'd still be alive, chances are pretty good her mother would still be alive, because her mother would have gotten proper treatment as well.
Let me just say this, and again, I don't want to make this about myself, and I don't want to go off on too long a tangents like we've been doing. But I will tell you that I was given chemo. It did not work. I was given CAR T. It did not work, and I almost died. The second chemo and the third chemo, 2 different chemos, 2 different times, 2 different treatments, 2 different treatment episodes. Those worked. The second after the first chemo, in the 2017 run, temporarily cured the cancer, and it came back 2 years later. I had a reoccurrence in 2019, and I got CAR T later that summer, and CAR T was the new hot thing. And it should have cured it, and it didn't. For whatever reason, it had no effect on my cancer at all. And my cancer got exponentially worse to the point that by the spring of 2020, I had softball-sized tumors crowding my heart. And if it had gone on any longer, I'd be dead. Flat out. And they waited that long to see if the CAR T was going to take at all. And they waited as long as they could have. And then they finally gave me a new, like, it had just come online not that long before this happened, a new kind of chemo. And I was like, I had, on top of the tumors that were in my lungs and around my heart, I had surface level tumors, kind of like what she has on her arm, on my backside, like right where my tramp stamp is. And I could actually feel the thing deflate the first day I got my treatment.
Wow.
So again, there are no guarantees in life, and there are certainly no guarantees with medicine. Things that should cure you don't. A really quick side story. My dad's best friend went into the hospital, I think for some sort of maybe a heart attack, was cured, was sent home, was given all the proper medicine, died in the wheelchair going out the door of the lobby.
Ow.
Nothing is for certain.
Absolutely. And what you're talking about actually does ring true with one of our other characters, Lucy. She's a follower of Belle. She is dealing with breast cancer. She's going through chemo, and it either doesn't seem like it's working or it's making things worse. There's a scene where she finds out that, and I know nothing about medical terminology, so if I totally screw up what actually happened, I'm sorry. But they say like blew an artery or something, so she's got to have something to fix that. And we as humans, we as rational thinkers, when something doesn't work, we say, well, then let's not do that again. You know, what's that line? What's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
That would
If
be
chemo
correct,
does,
yes.
sorry.
That would be correct, yes.
So for many people, if they were in your situation, and this is what Lucy goes through, the chemo is clearly not helping her. It's clearly not making her feel better. It doesn't seem to be reducing her cancer. And she doesn't want to keep going through with it. She's like, well, if it doesn't work, then why am I trying it again?
I felt worse after successive bouts of chemo than I did with the actual cancer.
I've heard that. I've got a girlfriend who had breast cancer. She had to fight. She talks about the chemo burns on her body, talked about losing her eyebrows, her fingernails, her toenails. And when she had a resurgence of the cancer, she had to block her Facebook and Instagram for a while because she was getting hit so hard with all of these suggestions for like, you should try this, you should drink this, you should go check this out. And she was just like, I don't want that. I don't want to hear any of that shit.
Can I tell you how also cancer changes everyone's perception of you? I take a lot of, despite my constant wanting to quit doing podcasts because like it just seems like a not worthwhile endeavor at times, given the competition. But here I am. But let me tell you how, like, I'm a dad, I'm a social worker, I'm a podcaster, I'm a movie critic, I'm this, I'm that, and the only thing people saw about me for the longest time was cancer survivor. And I wanted to beat every person. I know they meant well. I know their hearts are in the right place. I don't necessarily fault them for it. But it's when cancer becomes your entire identity and you feel dehumanized because of it, it is a hard thing to sit and live with. Because you can't like attack people for it. Like they're wishing you well, and it's a readily identifiable thing. Like the statistics for the amount of people who have cancer are ungodly. So I get that that's why not everyone can relate to me as a podcaster, but boy, can they relate to me as a cancer patient, except that's not what I want to be known for. I hated that period of my life. I really do. It's part of why I'm talking about it now. And I'll tell you, like, are they ever going to talk about this show? Relative to this show, that's a lot of what that character, I don't remember the character's name, not our lead or Millie, but the breast cancer survivor.
Lucy.
Lucy. It's a lot of what Lucy's going through. Because, she has a very noticeable thing. She has to wear wigs. She's bald. And, so all anyone ever sees from her is, is cancer patient. And she's like, Jesus Christ, when did I stop being a human? By the same token, you have the opposite thing going on with Belle, where her cancer survivor has to be her identity or she has nothing. She essentially, cancer survivor is a cardboard cutout that's standing in front of a ghost. She's nothing. She's so vapid and she's so shallow and she's such a non-entity as a person that she has to craft all of these identities, not the least of which is the one that's making her money, and that is health guru cancer survivor.
You notice she finds ways to drop. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. I forget stuff easily, brain thing. She drops that into every conversation has with someone. She has to constantly bring up, oh, and by the way, I have cancer.
Yeah. It's a thing that personality disordered people do. They will take any aspect of their personality, any aspect of an identity, and use it as an excuse to be a shit person.
And that is Belle Gibson all wrapped up into one. She is a shit person. And Catherine Dwyer plays her as a shit person really well. It's not easy to play a role where you make everyone want to just reach through the computer screen or TV screen and punch your living daylights out.
But the true tragedy of it all is when you first meet these wonderfully personality disordered people, they're marvelous. They're the best people on earth. They're so much fun. They have so much personality because it's all a fucking act. And they tell you what you want to hear. They're better than ChatGPT. The best validation machines on the planet are the personality disordered people because they pay attention to who you are as a person. Then they tell you everything that you want to hear. And then because we're so desperate for connection and understanding and validation ourselves, even the normal people amongst us, that we finally think, okay, well, this is my person, or this person gets me, and that's when they do get you. But it's not the way you think. You're in the bear trap now. Now look at what happened to her husband throughout this show. I don't know if it's in your notes to talk about this, but he is
Clive. For the record, they never actually got married. They were just
Okay.
partners.
Her partner, Clive,
Mhm.
he is led to believe she is one thing and finds out all too late she's the worst. And then he's trapped because he has a conscience and doesn't want to leave this poor child with this monster. So he has to so he has to stay happiness and slavery. He has to stay in the basement.
Pretty much.
And be
He has
chained to the wall, because what else is he supposed to do? Let this child be abused?
Well, he has no legal rights to the child. Belle
Right.
reminds him as such in that, oh my God, passive aggressive little scene
Oh, yeah.
in front of the hospital when he
It's
tries to
just
get
the
her to go
worst
in
kind
after
of-
the seizure.
It's just the worst kind of trap. He can't leave. He's too conscience bound to care for this child, yet he can't take the child because it's not his. What an
Yeah.
awful place to be in.
The little boy calls him dad by the end. He's, he's having the play dates with with the little boy's biological father, who seems like a nice guy, but clearly is not in it to be a full-time parent.
Right.
It's abundantly clear that he was with Belle and he got her pregnant. It was just like, oh, okay, we'll deal with it. And he's just doesn't have the parental gene. He loves his son, but doesn't have it in him to be a full-time parent. And Clive just can't do anything about it. He can't get out of it.
Right.
There are so many scenes that, you see him being the responsible one while Belle's screwing up. She's getting high with the crisis manager guy while he's cleaning the kitchen. It's like watching a parent having to deal with their child having, breakdown number 47. And they're just like, another day ends with, it's like, day ends with Y. You got to deal with this bullshit.
Yeah. Should you find yourself in a toxic relationship, I only have one word for you. Dr. Mark has the prescription that you need. That word is run.
And you and I both know a lot of people who have heard that and they still haven't.
It's hard to get out of the tentacles. Anyway,
Oh,
what's next?
So we also have what's her name, Chanel, who starts off as Milla's manager, as it were, and gets seduced to the dark side and starts working for Belle.
Talk about like the modern liberal woman, fucking know-it-all, self-righteous self-insert. Her character annoyed the piss out of me. I don't know if that's obvious or not, but like. I liked Belle. I liked Milla. I liked Lucy. I liked the dad. I liked Clive. Every time she was on screen, nails on a chalkboard.
Fair enough. I didn't think she was that bad. I like that she was able to cut through the bullshit a little bit more. I love that she was the one who sat down to have the intervention, as it were. And it's like, and how'd she respond? A river of white girl tears. I love that line. I love
you
that.
You and I are different people.
Yes, we are.
I wanted to punch the screen.
Fair enough. So, and the whole thing with Belle's mom, I could never. That's a woman I could not figure out, and I don't think we're supposed to figure her out.
Well, she's the reason Belle is the way that she is, because her mother is no different. There are no mother-daughter bonds here. There are no familial connections. There is only, I am a tortured and abused and neglected person, and and my life's blood is attention. And she modeled it for her daughter, and her daughter ran with it. That's that character.
Yeah, we see the scene where I guess it's Belle's first breakdown, where she gets humiliated and she ends up faking a heart attack and going to the hospital. And she goes in and she's like, it's like, they think there's something wrong with me. I'm sick, Mom. And her mother, who's relaxing on the couch watching TV, goes, you don't look sick.
Here's the thing: you could watch this show, and maybe you know people that are like this, and you go, "No, I could totally believe that." Maybe you've never experienced it, and you go, "Like that's hooey." Let me tell you how I lived it. I don't want to tell you who it is, and I don't want to tell you what the situation was.
No names. You and I both. And I both know. Okay, here's the thing.
I don't even want to allude to my relationship with this person. I will just tell you, I put them in a situation where they were absolutely trying to say anything and do anything to get me to change my mind and revert back to the status quo. And I refuse, because I am now, having been through Dante's Inferno, have come out the other side, made a sterner stuff. So I saw it coming a mile away. And so what she did was she faked that her legs gave out onto her, and she threw herself on the street, on the floor. She was next to her car. We were arguing. I said, my resolve will not be moved. I will not be moved. This is the situation. And she went, and she threw herself on the ground. And she was like, will you help me up? And I'm like, why? So that I can come over there, put my hands on you to help you up, and you can say I battered you when the cops get here? No, thanks. Not this little black duck. And having failed to manipulate me, she got up on her own 2 feet. I have seen the flop. I have watched enough soccer games. I have watched enough basketball games. If you need to know a recent example of the flop, check out Kaitlyn. Now I'm gonna fuck up her name. Oh my gosh, Kaitlyn something or other, and Angel Reese for in their basketball game recently, where Kaitlyn pushed Angel Reese, and Angel Reese flopped like a pro soccer player. Okay, this is a thing people do when words are failing them, when they can't control the narrative, when they can't promote the image that they want. They just will literally flop on the floor.
I have seen people do that. I've seen, again, no names, especially since I think a handful of people, you and I are we probably know some of the same people that we're going to discuss here. I remember one person who said that they had 1 million food allergies to everything.
Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark.
It would have bothered me if I didn't get that. If I didn't finally get her name out there. Keep going.
You would have been like lying in bed later tonight and just suddenly shot out going, Caitlin Clark!
And screaming Caitlin Clark for no good reason.
No, I knew this person through someone, and they had 1 million food allergies. They were allergic to like everything: wheat, gluten, dairy. And I was just like, and I remember the first time they told me this, I'm like, well, what the hell do they eat? Water and rocks?
Yeah.
And after a while, I saw they were very manipulative about it, and it's like I'm not feeling well. I think there was some gluten in that, and I was just like,
yeah,
it never got proven. I never got validation, but I just looked. I'm like, you are full of shit.
The thing about the personality disordered person is they will always move the chains. They will always raise the bar. Nothing is ever enough. No answer is the right answer. If the personality disordered person comes to you and says, I wish for the sky to be blue, and you point up and you say, but the sky is blue. It's blue right now. They would say, it's not the kind of blue I was talking about. That is how they live. And that is, if you seek to please the personality disordered person, it is like pouring water in a bucket with a hole. It doesn't hold water, and it's never full. And you exhaust yourself to the point of seizing and dying trying to do so. And then once your used up husk has been thrown to the side, they move on to the next sucker. This is the Belle character. Every person she came across, she used up and discarded, and those are important words, used up and discarded when they either saw through her and there was no more that she could get out of them, or they had just given all they could and there was nothing left to take from them.
Absolutely.
Also, she got easily distracted by whatever new thing was entertaining her at the time. So even if she had use for the old people, she was always in search for new jingling keys, a new bright color to obsess over, because the one thing the personality disordered person loves more than anything else besides attention is novelty.
Yeah, and I think one of the most obvious signs of that is in the last episode with Milla's funeral. When she shows up, she wasn't invited, she wasn't made aware, she probably heard about it online, and she walks in and she's the only one in black.
The fake tears. Again, hell of a performance for the actress playing Belle, because how do you as an actress then fake cry, fake tears? Like, what a meta level performance.
See, I didn't get the scene where she starts bawling in well, I don't know, it wasn't a church, whatever the heck it was they were having the funeral in. I didn't think it was so much it was fake tears. I think she was having an emotional breakdown about the all the interviews that were coming her way, and she realized that she was about to get totally screwed over. She wasn't fake crying because it's like, oh, how sad, how sad. It was, I am royally fucked, and I'm going to have a breakdown at the absolute worst possible time.
Maybe I'm misremembering, but I thought that was a part of where she's interacting with people at the funeral, and they all know she's full of shit, and she knows she's full of shit, but she doesn't want them to know that. But she can't get out. She can't hide the fact that she's full of shit any longer, and so she has to get. There's too much attention on the dead girl, so in order to create attention for herself, she starts bawling loudly and obnoxiously.
Again, that may have been how you were reading it. That's not the way I read it. So it could be a different thing. But yeah, the way she walked in the black dress and everyone else is wearing florals and bright colors, because I have been to a handful of funerals where it is don't wear black. It's not wear pastels, but is just, wear what you think, would, in honor of the person. When one of my uncles tragically passed a few years ago, the thing I always remembered him for was he lived in St. Louis and he had the biggest collection of Cardinals memorabilia that I had ever seen. He had to borrow one of my grandmother's rooms in her old house to store all this stuff. Just so much sports memorabilia. So for his funeral, I wore red because I said that's what I remember about my uncle is his love for the Cardinals. So to honor him, I'm wearing red tonight.
Cool.
And it was clear that she walked in and everyone, and yeah, she's wearing black. So it's like she did not know Milla because all these other people were either they were told or they knew Milla well enough to know she would not want people dressed in black at her funeral. Right. She was a bright, colorful person. She loved the outdoors. She loved nature.
But for Belle, it wasn't about Milla. It was about Belle.
Exactly.
How does this other woman's funeral, make me look?
And that scene where she tries to comfort Milla's fiance, Arlo, and he sees right through her bullshit. Just like that was satisfying.
Oh
like she's
the quasi-sexual assault that happens. And it's so funny because he's like shoving her out of the room and she immediately switches to don't touch me. Why are you hurting me? Mm-hmm. Oh, did I mention I knew somebody who threw herself on the floor and I said, I'm not coming anywhere near you. Fuck you.
Although I do love that when she drives off into, I will say this, there's a line she says to Joe, to Milla's father. She's in tears and he doesn't know what happened. He doesn't know who this girl is. Joe is blissfully detached from Milla's social media. Mm-hmm. And he just asks if she's okay because she's crying. And Belle could have said anything about Arlo or anything about her cancer, but she says she was so lucky to be so loved. And that is probably the only true thing Belle says in this entire series.
But she says it through gritted teeth and with jealousy.
Exactly. It doesn't matter if she said it earnestly. It was true.
Right.
Because for her, that's what she wanted. She saw all these people who loved Milla, not because she was on social media, not because she was an influencer. They were there because they had been around her and they knew she was a great, wonderful person, and they were very sad she was gone. And I think it just really hits Belle. You're not going to have that.
Right.
I think we should all be so lucky to have a funeral like what we saw from Milla with the beauty of the flowers and people are getting together and they're singing her favorite songs and they're playing music and they're reconnecting through her.
I know what I want my funeral to be. I don't want sadness. I don't want regrets. I don't want moroseness. I want a celebrity roast. I want to have Jesse up there being the roast master. I want all of you guys and some of my friends, those who still talk to me, to all come up there and be like, Mark was so gay, whatever. Just whatever. I want the Peter Griffin celebrity roast, or better yet, more to the point of this and the whole bit. Have you ever seen Amazon Women on the Moon?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you really should. So there's a bit where that's an actual bit that they do. This really bland, boring guy keels over and dies, and they have this whole funeral. The widows in black, kids are all in black. And all of a sudden, this curtain goes up, and it's like the old school celebrity Dean Martin celebrity roast. Mm-hmm. Rip Taylor is there. He's like throwing confetti and shit.
They
then
did say they did it on an episode of Greg the Bunny. One of the characters dies, and yeah, apparently the lawyer sends his will over to Eugene Levy's character, and he's like, apparently not going to handle this. And yeah, he wanted a roast. He wanted his body up in a coffin with like a cigar sticking out of the mouth, Don Rickles style.
But I have to have somebody. So in the bit, the wife, because if you've ever watched a roast, the person being roasted gets the rebuttal at the end, and this is where he goes after the entire panel. So you obviously can't do that if you're dead. So somebody has to speak for you. And in the case of Harv from Amazon Women on the Moon, his wife spoke for him, right? She does the rebuttal. Yeah, I want Robert to do my rebuttal. I want Jesse to be the roast master, and I want Robert to speak for me. It'll be 12 hours. And
can I be the person who brings the fire extinguisher and shoots it at anyone who starts crying and saying this is in poor taste? Like, no, none of that. Laughs only.
No, you can be Rip Torn and throw confetti.
Yes, I'll take it. I'll take the job.
Yeah, you need a bag of confetti. It's like, ha
ha. See, I've told one of my mother's last day in the hospital. They actually asked if I had like a living will or whatever for my funeral, and I said, look, all you need to know is this: donate my organs, cremate the rest, and at the funeral, I want to sing along to "Always Look on the Bright Side of Life" by Monty Python, and I mean sing along. I want the video screen and the fall of the bouncing ball.
All right, what's next on your list?
Well, that was actually the last episode. We could keep talking about what people go through with cancer, but frankly, I think we've kind of
I don't feel like that's necessary.
No, I think we've beaten that drum to death.
Yeah.
This is a really, really great miniseries, especially if, you've seen what cancer does to people. And the fact is that, it is so easy to, I don't want to say laugh, but to victim blame those who look for alternative therapies, holistic methods. But the truth is that when you are facing death, you become desperate. And desperation makes us do strange things. You have the scene of Lucy in Peru in the jungle, and she has a transcendental experience, as I'm going to call it. Translation: she probably swallowed something that was like a natural hallucinogenic from the jungle.
That's a real thing. I actually treated a client that went to Peru and did the Peruvian psychedelic trip. And he raved about its healing properties and what it did for his mind. And there are study upon study upon study that with a watchful eye of a medical professional and the right dosages, there's a lot of great use for psychedelics.
There is. I actually have talked to a lot of people who are currently going through treatments for arthritis and tinnitus, and they are really starting to work on breakthroughs with psychedelics in that.
Yep.
The problem is getting access to psychedelics is not really easy, and you have to get pre-approved for the trials. So, because I have been asked by certain people, I know, but this was before weed was legal. It's like, do you know someone who deals weed? Sure. Do you know someone who deals mushrooms? That, not as such.
Look, I don't want to get off on a rant here, but I am pro drug decriminalization, and I absolutely am pro drug medically approved drug use.
I am too.
Do I think you should be able to buy all drugs from the local 7-Eleven? Probably not, but you medically controlled psychedelic use, medical marijuana, all of that stuff, I'm absolutely a big fan of, and also a big fan of harm reduction. I don't think putting sick people in prison is a great idea. And I am one of those lily-livered, progressive, liberal panty waste that thinks that substance abuse is a mental illness, not a criminal issue. Those who are selling the drugs, by the brick, sure, but
yeah.
But those who are dealing with generational trauma, dealing with persistent depression and anxiety, who end up falling into substance use. I mean, we don't jail people for alcohol abuse, but we'll jail people for cocaine use. And I'm not entirely sure what the fucking difference is, other than racism and sexism. and a number of issues that were going around the time of the turn of the century when the Harrison Narcotics Act was enacted. But here's what I want to get into before we close out. I like the show's editorial point of view on a number of different things. The medical community, I think it presents both good and bad, and I think it does so even-handedly. I think it does what a show like this should do. It says the medical community is full of a lot of complex issues. Here's both sides. Do what you want with that. Great. I think as an editorial look at influencer culture, it also does that. I think it does it well. I think it, much like I did tonight, it walked a tightrope of definitely commenting on personality disordered people without outright diagnosing, which would be wrong, or speaking with too far from a place of authority, which I don't think it should have done either. I think just portraying the behavior was plenty without having to explain it. All of those things were good. What I don't think the show does well is it did the modern style. We talked about this at the top of the show, or prior to the show going to air tonight. I mentioned it to you. It does the non-linear storytelling thing. We start at the end of her journey. Then we go back. Then we go forward. Then we go back. We're all over the fucking place. And I know why they're doing it. It's because somebody somewhere said that the modern viewer can't keep their attention span on anything. So if we keep changing perspectives and we keep changing times, maybe you have a better chance of keeping the watcher engaged because you're not staying on any one thing for too long. And it drove me up the fucking wall. Part of it was, I am a modern TV watcher. I'm busy. I'm doing things while I'm watching TV. So my attention was not always completely focused 100% on the television. So I had to stop a couple of times and read in the wiki where we were, like a book, And someone
full confession, I had to do that repeatedly while binging Andor.
Okay. And someone might say, but Mark, if you're not paying fully attention, how can you then comment on the show? And I said, easy, because even if I wasn't paying that close attention, had it had a full narrative flow from a linear perspective, I would have been able to follow it. Because there's a very clear story being told from beginning to end. But because we're all over this place with so many different characters, like, just to give you a basis of comparison, The West Wing is told linear. It has 1 million characters in it, and they're all doing different things, and they're all doing it very fast. And I can still follow along with what's happening because we have a very clear linear narrative structure. Here, because they're doing it fucking collage style, it's forcing you to pay attention in a way that you really didn't have to. And I didn't love that. Also, it's got a lot of, because this was clearly not aimed at men. I happen to be a guy who's interested in the subject matter, but I think if we pulled demographics from Netflix and from whatever other institutions measure TV watching on stream, this had to have been watched by more women than men. First of all, more women are into the true crime thing than men are. Number one. Number two, I don't think as many men as women are even aware who the fuck Belle Gibson is or what the whole pantry was, other than if they saw it on their Apple Watch.
Yeah, I was going to say, the fact is that unless you are a follower of trends with holistic healing, or you had an Apple Watch, or you lived in Australia, she was a much bigger name. Obviously, she lived in Australia. This was much bigger news down there. So
right. So the point that I was getting at is the show is clearly aimed at women, and which is fine. But I also think it's done in a style that's aesthetically more pleasing to the average female viewer than the male viewer.
I'll give you that.
So those are my only issues with it. Other than that, I liked it. I'm glad it was only 6 hours and not longer, because as it was, I thought they stretched this. This could have been a movie. Shape this a little bit. Make it nice and tight. You could have gotten a tight 2-hour movie out of this thing and been done with it. Instead, we got a 6-hour movie, and it meanders in places.
They could have cut Lucy entirely out of it, but I liked
Yeah.
Lucy as a character,
Mhm.
and I like that he gives extra incentive to the reporter who's trying to expose Belle. He sees his wife going through this and being like, "No, I want to do this. I want to go find the cure for cancer in Peru." And he's sitting there going, "If she keeps following Belle's advice, she's going to die." And how do you do that? How do you deal with that? How do you deal with watching someone you love say, "Nope, I don't want to." It's again back to
Here's the thing:
Milla's father.
if the assignment is make a movie out of this and not a show, the way you do that is you just show him grieving her death, and you don't know her as a character. You cut her entirely, and you just face the aftermath of him. The story must be told because I will avenge the woman who died because of the shittiness of this other person. That is really all you needed. Except and that's in there, but it's drawn out because they had to fill 6 hours of content. I'm not saying it's like the worst choice ever, and don't watch the show because of it. I'm a critic. That's my criticism. Is we are adding things into this that, while are not awful, don't add enough to it to warrant its existence.
Fair point. Like I said, I really did enjoy it. I've already recommended it to a handful of other people, especially people like me who really can't stand influencers and how they make us feel so shitty for trying to, make content for our companies. It's like, no, we are, again, it is very hard when you look at, like we were talking about, the influencers who are just like, "I'm so pretty, click, click, follow me." And it's like, but I actually have to market this product because I need to sell it to keep my lights on. It's hard.
So this thing got an 83% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the website's consensus read, "Coating its tart tail in a sugary veneer, Apple Cider Vinegar's indictment of snake oil influencers finds a memorable avatar in Kaitlyn Dever's crisp performance." Outside of that, I didn't like. I went to go, much like I do with the movies that we watch on Damn You Hollywood. Like, I went to go see how much had been written about this and whether enough time had passed or whatever. I think about the time that the show came out, there was a lot of ink on her as a person, and where is she now? And I think the world quickly moved on from it. So, is this a show that I would recommend to people? Yes. Is this a show with a lot of staying power?
No.
Not really.
Yeah. Full credit to all the actresses involved, though. We've seen a ton with Kaitlyn Dwyer. She's really shown up in a lot of amazing projects. All of these actresses are great, and I really hope to see them in more stuff later on.
All right.
So let's go ahead and talk plugs. This was my second review this week. I was on last night talking season 2 of Andor with Andrew Roscoe and David Wright. It was actually a lot of fun because since David was on babysitting duty for his children, he decided to turn the camera off. So he had the symbol for HAL 9000 on his screen.
He had that on for Thunderbolts too.
You know what? Credit. It's funny. It is legit funny. But we gave Andor a glowing review. Had a lot of fun talking about it. I will be back.
Who also it got turned around on it and ended up loving it? Critical Drinker gave it a rave review. Yeah. He did not in the beginning. He joined Echo Chamberlain in thinking this was just hot garbage. But I guess whatever happened in the last 2 or 3 episodes of the show turned him around, and he gave a surprisingly glowing review of Andor.
Well, nothing like the genocide of a planet to get people on your side.
Ouch.
Sorry. I'll be back next week to take on the live action Lilo and Stitch, but not as a Damn You Hollywood. We're going to be doing an on trial, comparing it to the animated original and bringing in a few experts on the matter.
Yep, my children, and only my children, because I don't want to be a part of this anymore. You had backup, well, I don't know if he would have been backup. He'd have taken my kid's side, but you had another adult on the show. I am actually wildly curious as to how you're going to handle this, because I don't. You've had to deal with my son before. And I'll be curious to see how you handle having a ascendant intellectual adult conversation with an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old. How you're able to manage to keep everything on the rails. It'll be a test of your hosting abilities, I'll tell you that much.
Just out of curiosity, will they at least both have their own screens, or are they going to be sharing a screen?
Both of them have laptops. I'm gonna have them separated.
Okay, good. Wanted to make sure if I have to mute one, I don't have to mute them both.
You mute my son, I'm firing you.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Thanks.
really. I am vetoing. I have a line item veto, and I am vetoing your mute.
You take all the fun out of life, you know that?
Yeah, you call it fun. I call it abuse.
You gave me this power.
Okay, you use it on my son, you'll see what happens.
All right, fine. I won't mute.
What you do to your nerd friends, I don't give a shit about. Or, listen, you're already in enough trouble for muting me. Do you really want to double down on that? You want another song, bitch? I'll write another one.
Fine, I'll behave.
What's funny about that is I had been planning the plugs that play me for months now. Like, I'd always wanted to do that because it's such a prominent part of the show, and you're a prominent part of the network. And I start going into it, and Jesse is like, I'm not a part of this. I'm not a part of this. I'm like, you knew this was going to happen. You had up till now to tell me not to do this. And now
was Jesse trying to save my honor?
He kind of was. He was just like, I love Alexis dearly. And I'm just like, get the fuck out of here. You don't get to play White Knight now as we're starting this and not any time before in the months preceding. And, and he'll be like, I didn't know. You didn't know. We go over the schedule every month. The segment where I talk about the history of you being here, and I corrected some of the history and then talked about, the plugs that pay me and all of that, is up on YouTube now, and it'll be up on TikTok probably tomorrow. I was very fair to you. I was not kind. I was not mean. I was fair. So,
I was red from just like laughter and just like, oh my God. It was not red from anger or anything. So, and I still now love the line, the honeysuckle hustle.
Yes.
That was
Actually,
great.
my favorite thing is, are you going to pay me? Girl, are you high? This gig barely pays for the Wi-Fi. I fucking died. Anyway, what we're talking about is a recent episode of Sessions where Jesse and I prompted a rap song based on Alexis's line, and now for the plugs that pay me. So we had a lot of fun doing that.
I love that Jesse was apparently trying to save my honor. I was actually giving him a hard time. I just sent him a bunch of comic books. Turns out I get comic orders from my local shop, and there had been a couple of duplicates over the last 2 years. I just finally had time this last week to sit down and reorganize my collection. And I was talking to him about them, and I was like, do you want these? It's like, I don't want to throw these away. I don't want to shred them. I don't want to throw them in the recycle bin. If you want them, I'll send them to you, no charge. And he was nice enough to give me shipping for it. So I sent him the comic books, and he said, hey, I got them. Thanks for that. May our AI overlords bless us 100 times over. To which I said, I just want you to know that when the robot apocalypse finally does happen, in my dying breath, I will curse your name.
All right, are you still doing plugs? Because I'd like to do mine at some point before the fucking Nick game is over.
Okay, so yeah, On Trial, Lilo and Stitch. Next week, the week after that, we will be discussing Last of Us Season 2. Mr. Andrew Roscoe is coming back for that. We got Jesse on that, and I need to double check if Jason's coming in with me. So that's all I've got in my immediate schedule. So go ahead.
So as I said, Sunday was Metal Hammer of Doom Jukebox, actually. It was myself, Jesse, Mick, and Robert Cooper, and we reviewed Crowbot. We talked, we debated the merit of facial piercings. A TikTok will be following. We talked about the history of Crowbot. We then talked about the album from last year that came out, Obsidian. I introduced a new segment called This Today in Rock, which then spawned an entire conversation about the difference between Kisses paint and corpse paint, which was actually spawned by my daughter. And because of that, I had a taste of the ADHD and decided to go play. So I had friends back in high school. They formed a band called Scary German Guy, and they got on a couple of different at the cusp of being signed by a record label. They got on a bunch of compilation tribute albums, and so they do really bomb covers of Shout It Out Loud and Electric Eye by Judas Priest. So I played those on the show. That was a lot of fun. We had a whole other conversation about Chris Cornell and how sad some of his solo music was. Like, not sad bad, sad like brings you to tears. Then Mick did an OnlyFans coaching segment. It was PG for the most part. She actually was very vulnerable. She shared why she has done OnlyFans and what it means to her, and how she goes about doing it. And she showed what she could of her site. And now when she's on her show, you can check out her link in the description part. So that was the Metal Hammer of Doom jukebox this past Sunday. Mick actually showed up again with your boyfriend, Zach Strobel. Did you know he was moving?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he told me he got the job in Colorado.
Yeah, he told me all about it. So he was there. I said with Mick there and Zach there and Robert, it felt like I was at a party where two different groups of friends were meeting for the first time. I'm like, is this
pretty much
go together? So we actually had a really good review of Final Destination Bloodlines. Nobody wanted to kill each other by the end of it, which was nice. Tomorrow, I will be reviewing with Mick again The Parenting, Control Freak, and Holland. So it's some streaming horror movies for yes. Speaking yes, we got a comic strip coming up this Saturday. It'll be myself and Evan Devins comparing the Robert Venditti book, The Surrogates, to Surrogates, the Bruce Willis film. So that'll be fun. Next week, along with what Alexis said, I have been obsessing about these movies since rewatching them, and my God, how prescient they were. We will be talking Pump Up the Volume, SFW, and SLC Punk. That'll be myself and Jesse and Mick Wanamaker, who asked to be on the show late in the game, so she'll be there. We will be reviewing, just Robert and I will be reviewing Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. Thank God. As much as I love the Mission Impossible movies, enough's enough. As I said, my kids will be on Lilo and Stitch, and I will have myself a time. Thursday, Long Road to Ruin is back, as is Sean Comer and theoretically Pat Mullen. And we will be looking at the Karate Kids Part 1, 2, and 3. So that's what's going on in my world. Take me home, baby doll.
Can't get Pat to review the next Karate Kid, huh?
I've already done the next Karate Kid.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Oh, no, wait. Is the next Karate Kid the one with the chick?
That's Hilary Swank, yeah.
Okay, that's the only one I haven't done.
Yeah.
When I think Cobra Kai came out, Sean Comer and I did an on trial for the Karate Kid with Jackie Chan.
Yeah, that's a really good one, actually. I thought that was a great movie.
But no, Ralph Macchio's not in the Hilary Swank one. That's why she's not being included in the Ralph Macchio Karate Kid trilogy.
Okay, I gotcha.
Also, I don't want to do it.
It's not a good movie.
Okay, then.
No, I've actually seen it. It's pretty stupid.
Yeah.
Mostly because the villains make absolutely no sense. All right. And as far as, shall I call it, the plugs that pay me?
Want me to play the song?
No. Down, boy.
Go ahead. The Honeysuckle Hustle. Hit it.
Honeysuckle Rose Creations, for fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. We're getting ready. We are going to be hosting a 15% off sale this weekend for Memorial Weekend. So that's 15% off everything in our Etsy and Handmade at Amazon shops. And next weekend, we will be appearing at the Des Moines Con. Super excited for that. They're going to have a bunch of awesome celebrity guests, including Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio, Mike Coulter. And we are going to see performances from epic rap battles from history. I didn't even know they were going to be there until I found out this is one of the first stops on their worldwide tour. It's going to be awesome. Cannot wait. As always, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Goodbye Twitter, No Regrets, and as long as it's still here, TikTok. All right. So for myself, for Mr. Mark Radulich, thank you for joining us. And to all of the, as the review called it, snake oil influencers, the aspartame in my soda is for you.